Hi everyone, here's the Bookamisk once again, and today I'm reviewing The Magicians by Lev Grossman, which is a book that's been widely reviewed as Harry Potter for adults, and that I would probably call Harry Potter meets American Psycho, really. It's a book I liked, it's an excellent adventure and urban fantasy. I'm not sure I liked it too much for a variety of reasons. It definitely is the kind of book that makes you want to discuss it and to, film a review about it, because it's full of so many reflection points and it's so clever and so problematic in all the points it raises. First things first, this is part of a trilogy, but it's also quite self-conclusive. You can just read this one and be done with it. I felt the ending was quite satisfying, a bit more about it in a minute. But yeah, it's part of a trilogy, you can just read The Magicians and be done with it. And the comparison with Harry Potter for adults actually gives you a good idea of what it is about. It's about a geeky, nerdy kid who grows up in Brooklyn and then goes on to study magic at a magic school in upstate New York. George Martin, the creator of Game of Thrones, discussed the relationship between The Magicians and Harry Potter and said that it's a bit like comparing a glass of Irish whiskey with a cup of weak tea, but this to me does not feel like Irish whiskey too much. It feels more like the kind of cocktail you get in a city club, the kind that's probably been spiked by people who want to steal your pancreas, and that sounds like a bad thing. It sounds like the book is bad. It's not. It's just that it's a weird experience and it is much less straightforward than you probably might imagine if you stopped watching the review here and said, oh yeah, it's about a kid who goes on to study magic at university. It's more complicated than that. That is because the main topic of the book, the main idea at its heart, is the paradox of power, and the idea that the more you achieve power, the less happy you're going to be in life, because you'll feel like getting more of it, and it will never be enough, and you'll never be satisfied. And escapism, the escapism provided by fiction, provided by this escape into this world of magic, is problematized throughout this whole book, because it is never enough for this main character. When he discovers magic, he is the happiest guy on earth, but pretty soon that becomes mundane, and he wants to get more and more kicks out of more and more exotic stuff, and soon everything goes out of hand. And the book discusses this idea, this need to set aside your power and your escapism in order to engage with the real world. Indeed, it opens with a very famous quote from The Tempest, about Prospero and the need, his decision at the end of the play to put aside his books and dedicate himself to, governing the city of Milan, which then it is implied that he somehow reaches by boat, go figure. The Magicians discusses that same paradox and that same need, even though the characters in here are not always as wise as Prospero is in Shakespeare. And it is fast. Lots of interesting stuff happens all the time to these characters. They meet a lot of adversities, they go on lots of adventures. Exploring this magic school is quite interesting. So why did I say it's weird? Why did I say it's unexpected? Because of a series of issues I had with the book. The main one, the main issue I had with it is that about halfway through the novel I realized that every character in this book truly is an asshole. At first I didn't quite realize it, but when I started seeing it, it changed the way I looked even at the first half of the book. And yeah, even those characters that are a bit less disgusting than the others are still all horrible, and they are not even the kind of characters you love to hate. If this was Game of Thrones, these wouldn't be the type of characters that always keep you hooked and that keep slaughtering all your favorite characters. These wouldn't be Lannisters, these wouldn't be Boltons. The characters in The Magicians would all be variations on Sansa Stark. You'd like to root for them, bad stuff keeps happening to them, but sooner or later they all do things you don't quite understand, or they're just puzzling and you're like, yeah, no, I can't quite root for you, you're not my favorite character at all. That's why I said this is like American Psycho. It's like a Bret Easton Ellis novel with magic, both because of its reflection on the, horrible stuff people do when they're bored and all-powerful, and because there are really no likable characters in this book. But that's not necessarily a flaw of the book. Actually, it's an excellent thing in a way, because it goes hand in hand beautifully with its reflection, with its, discussion of the way magic and power in general turn people into capricious children, into annoying, terrible people. That's great. It still doesn't make the book more enjoyable than it is. Also because in the first half of the book, this felt like an awesome fantasy, an awesome adventure. There are passages in which the main character goes like, yeah, I'm going to become a motherfucking magician, and you're like, oh yeah, that's amazing. I want to, learn about all your amazing adventures. You'd like to, get involved with these characters. And for me, after a certain point, it became impossible because, again, they're all horrible, and that's fine. It's the purpose of the book. As I read it, it still didn't make the experience that much of an awesome, enjoyable read. Also, part of the reason I had an issue with this book, and this too is in so many ways justifiable, is that human reactions throughout the magicians felt very off to me, and sometimes I wasn't really able to relate with these characters or to, empathize with them because of their bizarre human reactions to the events that happen to them. Part of this issue may be personal or even cultural. For instance, this is a book about kids who go to a magic school but still somehow spend most of their days drunk. Like, how old are you? What's your problem? And they spend all their days together with other kids that they still somehow hate or, aren't really friends with. And I understand that may just be because, college life and the whole college experience is lived very differently in the US and in Italy, and these may just be cultural differences I'm not too able to relate with, but still, other things I'm not so ready to justify them, like, as for instance the fact that these kids find out about magic and spend 3 years mastering it and becoming awesome magicians, and then in the span of a week or two they get bored and they're like, oh yeah, who cares, who gives a shit. I mean, it all happened a little bit too fast to be believable to me in the book. Is it a good book? Yeah, I think it's a good book. I think it's a great book. And it might just be that I am a weird reader, but to me it didn't feel like that kind of enjoyable, thrilling adventure I was expecting. If anything, it really felt like some kind of horrible parody and horrible distortion of a fantasy adventure. It really felt like a Bret Easton Ellis's version of Harry Potter. I will read the sequels probably soon, but really, if that's probably because this, academically speaking, it's very much the type of book I study. Had things being different, I maybe would have been contented with the first book, and I would have left the sequels be. Let me know what you think about The Magicians. Did you have a different experience with it? And by all means, it's not like I disliked it. I actually liked it a lot. And it made me think, a lot and take a lot of notes, which is always a good thing with books. Let me know about your experience with Grossman's fiction. What did you think about it in the comments below? And thank you so much as always for watching. Bye guys.